understand the business that you are in,
Sure.
right? So you're getting whacked everywhere, right? So you all come together and say, let's appreciate each other. It could be, right? I'm not telling it is, but it could be, right? But
and that's where this thread is headed. I'm trying to ask that have we given too much weightage to peer recognition?
But if you tell me that does the organization value it? It depends upon where you are practicing and how you are doing it, and how you are able to use it. Now you see typically like a business of ours, right? How does it really this thing get? Even multinationals or anybody, if I've got to make a product, right? I will look what is a competitor's product. I will strip it fully and say what is it that I can learn out of it, right? So similarly, if I take a best practice, when I go for a best practice study, right? I will look at the best practice. And if I try to copy it, then it is a big problem, right? That because you cannot copy how a culture, one organization with another organization, you know. So therefore, HR practices are very generic. You take the organization, right? They have all this, if you ask me time off, it may be there. But do you copy incessantly what others are given? I don't think, because how you manage your PMS or how you manage your engagement, I will never be able to do. Similarly, how I manage my process, you will never be able to do. But you have a unique way of creating a unique employee experience, right? And employees also get carried away with the external brand image, right? Because of an employer brand comes from your external brand, right? So many of these organizations, like if you take Google or many of these things, a perception is created, right? And that this is a great thing, and therefore single practice, if it connects with a larger mass of people, it gets into that. And therefore you want to go showcase to the outside world what you have done that makes you great, and you want to show that business could not have been there without me. Because you are not appreciated. What you are telling is that HR is not, all CEOs, etc., do not speak of HR. But you want to show them that, you jolly well, could not have created without me, Because you have no forum. Internally, it is not. Did Google internally accept that 20 minutes is actually created? I have not seen a Google CEO. They have gone and shared with others. Others have appreciated, right? Therefore, the need for getting an external appreciation to create an internal pull for practices is probably what is making HR people, right? So I don't want to take the negative aspects, right? So I want to propagate, as Bector was telling, a positivity amongst all of us. Otherwise, at the end of the program, you will tell, what is this here? We get bashed up in the organization, we get bashed up, and Sujay ka meeting mein bhi bash up karke chala gaya.
So, Sujay, I'd just like to restate what Prince said. And in my mind, it has two dimensions, okay? Any of these studies. The external dimension is about positioning the organization vis-a-vis, people you want to attract to the organization, right? Younger recruits, new recruits. What is the employer brand or the image that the organization carries in the minds of people outside? Plus, it's also a feel-good factor for people who work within the organization to say, I work for such and such a company which has so-and-so brand. So when you brag about it to, friends and colleagues and in the community, it resonates in a certain way, or you sort of get looked upon in a certain way, saying, oh, you work for so-and-so organization. So it's that external positioning, that is one dimension. The second dimension internally is about the utility that any of these studies have for the organization. And that is what you said is in terms of creating the pull for practices. Okay, but one size does not fit all. You have to look at which industry you are in. All right, if there is any of these studies comes out with a handbook of best practices or whatever, if you try to blindly copy paste that into the organization, it absolutely spells doomsday, because you will not be successful. The DNA of the organization is different, the culture is different, the people who have to execute is different, the needs are very different. All right, so being able to understand what the organization needs, and then dissecting those best practices and looking at what you need to probably take in a customized manner. So to the organization, it's the utility purpose of participating in these studies, okay, which creates internal benchmarks to see how can you get better from where you are today. what is it that the ecosystem in the organization requires to nurture the workplace, to look at what is happening in different industries and within the same industry as well. But to have an aspiration to say you need to be in the top 20, all right, it's aspirational to be there, but is it the right aspiration to have? Because you're competing against different industries, which is IT, ITES, manufacturing, and so on and so forth, or banking and financial. So it's a mixed bag. You're stacking up somewhere, but then are you sort of beating yourself or flogging yourself, saying you didn't make it to that list in the top 25? But if you were to look at it parallelly internally, you're probably doing a good job within your industry and looking at things which are very progressive for your own organization.
So the point I want to point out here is over 100 companies typically participate in these studies. It's the top 25 that get featured, and I think it's the top 10 that get kind of rah-rah'd. And there's a huge urge in the other organizations to also find a name or a position in that listing. The point we're trying to make is the rationale for why companies participate in is not the question for debate. What we're looking at is that what do the other aspirant companies begin doing in terms of wanting to imitate the winners? And I think that's the point that we're trying to make here. Is that, I pointed out that most of the companies listed are in the IT, ITES space. They have a reason for doing what they're doing, which is business relevant. If Google's giving off people 20% of their time off, imagine trying to do this in the manufacturing space or in some other space where clearly this is not what you really need to do.
I'd like to differ a bit on what you're saying. I think the when is important.
Yeah.
So first, for on a lighter note, if you're all tending towards kitty parties are not bad, so I think so be it. Yeah, we must get together once in a while, but I don't want the discussion to go the kitty party route. I think the important thing is, I just want to enhance what the two speakers said, Prince and Aparna. One is when. To my mind, I'd like to share some perspective of when should you participate, because that I think is critical. And of course, the starting thing is they say that it's not an original, but culture eats strategy for breakfast. And that's the point Prince was alluding to. You take the best, even the 20% Google route, you cannot just lift and shift into another organization, because your culture will not allow the seeds of that new idea if it's not ready.
Right.
So that's how I feel about
right.
benchmarking.
In the same vein, I want to say, for example, you blindly put a food festival together. I mean, Cadbury's is in the food space, which is the reason why they're doing what they're doing. Intel is doing the Dear Boss because they possibly have something that they're trying to build internally. Yeah. Where maybe the boss-subordinate relationship, so there's no engagement or something that they're trying to do there. Now, in a culture of psychophancy or in a culture where already bosses are patronizing towards employees, this is a disaster initiative to be able to even put into place. The when
is important. I just want to stay on the when again. See, intuitively, we know when are we going to be excellent. And that's the HR leadership challenge. My view is we must go out to the world when we believe there is excellence, and we can actually go out to the peers and say we are world-class in something. So if we are aspiring...
Yeah, but the reality, Vikram, is that we've just got people who will blindly copy, and sometimes it's initiated by the CEO himself. That, an XYZ organization has 360-degree feedback. Why don't we initiate the same thing?
See, that's where it requires courage, and you can't teach courage, but the fact is if you feel as a discipline, as an HR function, you're not ready to talk about something, then I think we should resist that temptation, because clearly everybody sitting out here has a point of view. Yes. And it's not that people judge you, even though you might say this is shouting from the rooftop.
Sure.
And I want to also end with a anecdote. I've joined Reliance recently, and I've asked two questions. And I think the first is, what is your sense about Reliance? Common refrain: great company, size, scale, wow, profitability, very savvy. And then I popped the second one: will you join Reliance? Because that's part of my role. So there are some nods in the group here. And yet that led me to an inquisition saying, why are 26,000 people working here? And then you get a sense that there are a certain side of people who are attracted to the size, the scale, the sheer, whole depth of the canvas. So the point is, you start to then, your employee value proposition, I'm beginning to understand, should be all about what kind of people will be attracted. We don't want to tell the whole world, come to Reliance, because maybe they're not the right people. Maybe, so the targeting it when you feel it's right, I think is the time to go to market. Before that, it's premature. So I think when is very important.
Right. I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Chandra.
No, so I agree. When is important, and those who are thinking about that are actually doing a strategic job, isn't it? They are trying to find a fit between the readiness of the company and its desire to claim a certain recognition. So let's connect all the dots. The first one is that HR is not there. We all beat each other, and we are not there in strategy. When we start searching answer for that, the temptation more than copying, etc., is the temptation is to actually believe that we should become business managers, which then will actually deprive corporate world of the creative tension that is required between the people agenda and the business agenda. And it is the ability to integrate those two agendas and not one imitating the other. As much as I may not be able to, as Prince said, exactly count 1/6 of a billion, the CEO, poor fellow, the CFO, poorer fellow, don't understand the mood of an employee, don't understand where his people are disconnected or disengaged. And by the way, in their private selves, they are as worried about that and not proud of their dividing the billion into so many sections. They look at me with envy to say, how do you have this insight which doesn't occur to me? So now the question is, professions are built not by trying to do what others do, but by deepening your expertise in a given area. I would not take up a CEO job, and I'm saying this for myself, even if I was given one. I may not be given one, but even if I was given one, I won't take, because that will deprive me of pursuing my passion, which is HR. And I want to build this into a profession that is credible, that is deep, and that makes an equally strategic contribution to an organization. And I believe it has all the potential to do it. And there is no one answer to that. And so, now if you connect that dot with this desire to become a great place to work, or by that desire to copy something, in the hands of thoughtful leaders, like Vikram said, you would not copy, but you would wait and build practices or encourage your managers to build practices that actually first make you a great place to work. And then you can claim, great place to work is not a brand. And if that is just a brand, then 3 years after you will not be. I mean, so many brands came up, and so many times you're talking of IT companies. There were bigger IT companies just a few years ago who were always the great place to work. What happened to them? They need new coins, new sikkas, various things happened. So because nothing remains great forever. You can't just keep renewing. Branding is a competition. So it is not true that only HR people are trying to compete. There is a best CEO award. Other day I was there in NDTV award, CNBC award. CEOs are also competing with each other. The only point is that professions other than HR, like somebody said there, are actually investing in honing their tools, methods. So if there is a gap accounting, there is a certain respectability to gap accounting. So is there an equal respectability to the 9-box grid? The future of HR belongs to our ability to create evidence-based tools and processes that really say that if you do a food festival, it will increase employee engagement by dash points. If you did a 20% time, then somebody in Google actually told each other, whether the HR fellow told or who told, God knows, that actually you do that, you will have more innovation. So practices are justified when they contribute to the cause of the organization. It is not the nature of the practice which makes itself valuable. It is the effect of the practice which makes it valuable. So start from the end in the mind, then you will have a science to what you will predict.
All right.